Slipping near the edge, holding something we don't need. All this delusion in our heads is gonna bring us to our knees. So come on, let it go. Just let it be. Why don't you be you?
Okay, we're talking about back to school because it's actually the last week of August here, and where we're living, the kids are going back to school. In some neighborhoods, our kids have already started. Like, I know they have started in Florida and North Carolina, Iowa. I mean, not Iowa, Ohio. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I know Carson's back in Utah,
And the
Brian and Brandy's kids are back in Cedar Hills. So it's back to school night.
and Jared, where we are right now in Pocatello recording this, Jared starts school this week.
So everybody has a little difference. I think Washington, D.C. will be later on, though.
They wait till after Labor Day, I think.
So anyway, we hope all you grandkids have a great time going back to school. We enjoy seeing all the pictures of first day of school or first day of school that you'll have a sign in front of you that says 5th grade or 9th grade or 8th grade or 10th grade or 11th grade, wherever you're at.
I have to tell you one of my funny memories. Once when Johnny and his family were living in Michigan, and the kids all had their first day of school, and he had a sign that said first day of
Grad school.
what he had the number of grade. I think it was 17th grade or something like that. Starting to grad school. That was funny.
Yep, so wherever you're at, we hope you have a great school year starting, and we thought we'd reminisce about some of the things we have done in our family in the past to celebrate school startings and school achievements. Go ahead.
Talk about what we did in our family before school started. We would make sure.
Well, I think one of the things we did is we made sure everybody had a blessing.
A father's blessing.
I give them a father's blessing for each of the kids as they go to school. And that became a tradition with us.
Or before they went away to college.
Or before they went away to college.
Or before they went away on their mission. Important times.
At every appropriate event.
So we'll start with our oldest, Nathan. When he started kindergarten, we were living by the Hanselmans in Dubuque, Iowa. And the house that we lived on was kind of up on a hill. And the elementary school was at the bottom of the hill. Of course, the road went down around, but there was a way that he could walk on a kind of a zigzag course to go down to the school.
Yeah. That was the shortcut too, wasn't it?
Right.
There was a stairway, I think it was, that went from top to bottom there.
And I don't think I ever walked him to school.
I think I did a few times.
Because why were you home?
I'd be working second shift.
He had afternoon kindergarten. And go ahead.
Did you have afternoon kindergarten?
Yes, he had afternoon kindergarten.
Well, and I would be home in the afternoon until about 3 or so before I go to work.
So that was fun for him to be able, for our very first child to be able to walk him to school. By that time, we already had, let's see, Nathan was 5, so we already had Priscilla and Jacob when he started kindergarten. Okay, then when Priscilla, okay, this is what's very interesting. We started testing Priscilla for hearing problems when we were living in Green River, Wyoming, but the testing in Utah at that time wasn't very good. But by the time we moved to Iowa, well, let's see. We did finally get good testing for her, and she started going to school we were living in Utah.
Stansbury
Park, Utah, and it was 20 miles to Salt Lake City. Anyway, she was going to school in Salt Lake City. Someone who lived also in Stansbury Park had a child who was deaf, and she had a job to go to. Maybe it was a part-time, I can't remember. but she would pick up Priscilla and take her to school. And it was very interesting for her to start going to preschool when she was 2.5 years old. It hurt my heart, but it helped. It helped a lot. She had a special hearing aid that was only a single microphone here that they gave the same volume to both ears. That was what they had at the beginning, and it was kind of, for a minimal hearing loss, that's all they had her. They didn't know exactly what her hearing loss was. They thought she was a very minimal hearing loss, but it helped. It helped a lot. And I remember one time we used to have dairy close to us. We always got raw milk for our family. And I sent cream with her one day to school, and the teachers used maybe I went this day because I can remember it, going with a blender and making butter with the cream. That's a very small memory I have. So she started school there in 1982 to kindergarten. And that was the year that we moved to Dubuque, Iowa in October 1982. So she only went to school there for a very short time. We moved to Iowa, and they did some testing there to get her in the program. They have to do testing to make sure she qualifies, and their tests were very different. They had a very sophisticated lab. Do you remember where we went to take her for testing?
In Iowa?
Uh-huh.
University of Iowa.
University of Iowa. And they told us she had a severe to profound hearing loss. She's doing fine, we thought.
And so at first they started her on an itinerant teacher who would come to the home for like 3 or 4 times a week. And she was teaching her through a total communications basis.
Where she did sign language and lip reading, and, a child that young, she still was less than 3 years old, but she was very eager and interested in learning.
And so then this was just before her 3rd birthday, that she would then start into preschool in Farley.
We moved, I don't remember where it was. All I remember is a memory when we lived on Valentine Street, because we moved from the house by the Hanselmans to Valentine Street, and I can remember seeing this bus. She went on a school bus, a big school bus. I mean, it wasn't like a little half-size bus, huge school bus. They came to our house to pick her up, and I remember one time, the memory I have is from the house by the church on Valentine Street, 960 Valentine. Here it was, with snow all the way up to as high as a car was, and here's the school bus driving up and picking up our little girl, all bundled up, and I put her on the bus, and she'd ride 18 miles to go to preschool in Farley, Iowa. That was quite a hard thing for my mama heart to let her go, but it was good for her.
For you or for her?
For Priscilla.
For you.
It was good for Priscilla. Truly, honestly, because she started so young, she was very capable of total communication. In other words, she didn't rely on speech, on sign language to get along. In school they did sign language with her, but when she came home we knew a few words. We didn't do it very much. And she learned because she had all this help starting when she was 2.5 years old. And actually she went all the way through school, through elementary school, high school, Rick's College, BYU, Idaho now, never having an interpreter in her classroom. Now she has been, as an adult, she has worked as a teacher's aide in a deaf classroom, and she cannot believe that she got through school without any extra help. It's because I'm sure she was blessed. She's very smart, and we were blessed to be able to, with our many, many kids, to be able to not have to send her away to a school. Some kids that are her age are sent to, in elementary school, they are sent to a state school. When we lived in Iowa, we went to a program to find out about this. They were talking to us about how much better it would be if she went to this place in Cedar, where was it?
Council Bluffs.
Council Bluffs, Iowa. So here's Dubuque over by Wisconsin and Illinois. Here's Council Bluffs over on the other side of
The whole state, yeah.
All the way across
Omaha,
the state.
Nebraska.
And they wanted to send her there. So she'd be there for a week and then come home on the weekends, or maybe we could go see her. I don't know, but she never went. I couldn't imagine being required to send her to go learn, but because of her exceptional intellectual ability, which I believe was a blessing from God, she learned how. She survived. She got through school. She did very well. I'll tell you one thing. In third grade, we moved from. She was in third grade. We moved from Iowa to North Carolina, where they didn't have as effective a language program in the school district. And she went from being in a contained classroom, where she would be all day long in a special classroom for hearing impaired kids. That's what we called them at that time. Now they call them deaf kids. The whole classroom was that same category, and she would go out 2 or 3 times a week to another class or another activity. Or maybe it was 2 or 3 times a day. I don't know exactly. I don't remember. She was young. But she was in this classroom most of the time. We moved to from Iowa to North Carolina, and she was just the opposite. She was in a regular classroom all day long, and she went out once or twice a week for speech therapy. That was a big difference. And she, it took her a while to adjust, and I think a few things, I can't remember, there was probably some things that she didn't do as well, but then she caught right up.
Yeah, she was pretty insistent that when she was finding out or feeling that she was missing more in the classroom than she was by going out to a special language teacher.
That was the 6th grade, 7th grade when she started telling us that she didn't want to go anymore to this language speech pathologist. She didn't want to go outside of the classroom for special help because she thought what she was missing was more important than what she was getting with the speech therapy. So that was interesting. Okay, let's go back to the chronology. Next was Jake. Jake started to kindergarten when we lived in Iowa, and then we moved to North Carolina. So actually 1982, and I figured out he probably started kindergarten in Iowa, and then we moved in January to North Carolina.
Yeah.
And so he would have moved during his kindergarten year to go to North Carolina. We had a lot of kids who did moving during kindergarten. And I know you parents whose kids are starting school, you think, oh, we can't disrupt them. We can't, it's going to be so important. And as an adult now, Priscilla, when I asked this question for all the kids, who remembers where you started kindergarten? And Priscilla said, I don't remember anything about kindergarten. So she probably doesn't remember all those times that she rode on the bus to school and
to differentiate which one was going to the preschool versus kindergarten.
Right. Because she actually started from this same school in Iowa, Farley, Iowa. When she went there, they had preschool and they continued on into her kindergarten. By the time she got to be other grades, she would move to a classroom that was closer into where we lived in Iowa, where she was in a school that was closer for the neighborhood, but she still was in a contained classroom at that school. And everything was like that until 3rd grade. Okay, now Marie started school in North Carolina. She went to kindergarten in North Carolina at Benvenue Elementary School. That's probably where Jacob went from the Iowa school to North Carolina. Benvenue Elementary. I'll tell you a funny story about Mike. Yeah, Dad, he has to get a drink. So Mike started kindergarten in North Carolina, and then we moved to Chandler. So he would have started kindergarten in 1984, and then moved to Chandler at Christmas time of 84, and Brian was born in 85. Mike has had a half-year of kindergarten, where the cutoff date, his birthday is September 21st. The cutoff date then was either end of September or 1st of October, I don't remember. But he made the deadline. He started kindergarten. When we got to Arizona, the cutoff was August 31st. And so they didn't want him to go to kindergarten because his birthday was in September. I said, he's had half a year of kindergarten. Why don't you test him? And so they tested him, and he was fine. He stayed in kindergarten in Arizona. They went to Pomeroy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Johnny, go ahead. Did you have something?
No.
Okay. Johnny remembers starting kindergarten in Chandler. And then halfway through his year, we moved to El Paso, Texas. And so he went from starting in Chandler to going to El Paso, Texas, to Eastwood Knolls Elementary. Now, I have to tell you how cool this was. The first place we lived in El Paso was close to the high school. So there was the high school here, and there was a kind of a real nice community right next to the high school, a little bit of upper area. But we were looking for a house big enough for 7 kids. So finding a big house, we had to look where it was available. There was one for rent in this neighborhood, so we were renting here. And the kids went to school right down the hill to Eastwood Knolls. So it was the relationship from the K through 8 Eastwood Knolls Elementary School to the high school was a couple of blocks. Okay? Mm-hmm. It was a great experience for our kids to be able to go there. And so Johnny...
I remember when I went down to the elementary school, Eastwood Knolls, to register our kids before they got there for the first day. The registrar there at the elementary school asked me, what grades will you have kids for? I said 8, 6, or 8, 7, 5, I don't know.
Yeah.
5, 3, 2, and kindergarten. They said, all those grades? I said, yeah, we have all kids for those grades. Brian was only about 2 years old at the time, almost 2. So he didn't start, he did start there eventually, but anyway.
Anyway, the K through 8 school had 6 Hansen kids in it. And Johnny remembers teachers even recognizing him as he came up through. As kids, people saw him, they said, oh yeah, I recognize you. You're one of the Hansen kids. 6 in a school, probably wasn't a very big school at that time. Anyway, that's where Nathan met Melanie.
At high school.
No, he met her at Eastwood Knolls. No, she would have been a year ahead of him, that's right. Because he was in 8th grade, she was in 9th grade by then. So Nathan was, big guy on campus. Priscilla was in 7th grade. The next year, Priscilla was chosen Student of the Year. Here's the girl who gets by reading lips, telling the teachers, I have to be able to see your face, so you can't turn your back when you're talking. So anyway, she was Student of the Year at that school. It was kind of a neat thing.
Well, and I think all the kids had good learning experiences in the El Paso schools. It was in the Isleta School District.
Ysleta, Isleta, an Indian word.
Or Spanish.
Or Spanish. So,
but
let me tell you something that I used to do with the kids. Starting in North Carolina, I started going with the kids to school to volunteer for like a half an hour to 20 minutes to half an hour singing time. And the teachers liked it so much that I started going once a week to do singing time with the kids in their classroom. I remember especially that I was doing it in North Carolina because I have a memory of Nathan, who was our oldest at the time, probably 3rd grade, maybe 4th grade.
I think he's still our oldest child right now.
I know. He's still our oldest child. But anyway, he was, for the Christmas program, and I didn't have anything to do with this, the teacher selected him to have a special part in the Christmas program concert. They had a concert. And I don't know if this would ever work today because it's a religious song. It was a spiritual. Children, go where I send you. How shall I send you? I'm going to send you one by one, one for the little bitty baby that's born in Bethlehem. And it was 2 by 2 for the mother and father, 3 by 3 for the wise men. Anyway, he had a special, the choir would all sing this, and he had a special part that he sang at a certain point. That was in North Carolina, the Bible Belt.
So that was all right there. No, it was, kids had good experiences in the North Carolina schools as well. But they were only there for 3 years. And then we moved back to Chandler. In Chandler, Mike was tested, which Kathy already alluded to. Mike was tested to see if he was going to stay in kindergarten
No,
or
it was.
not.
Oh yeah, go ahead. To see if he was going to stay in kindergarten.
Yeah. And by the time he got to El Paso, they wanted to move him ahead another year. But we said, no, that's not going to happen because Marie's in that school year and we don't want them both to be there. He's already got 1 year up. So let's just wait right there.
Interesting comment. So he was always young for his age because his birthday's in the end of the school year.
In some places.
And he was actually out of the school year in some other places, but he was already young for his age in the school year, and so we didn't want him to go ahead either. He was smart, of course. A lot of kids are smart. Most of our kids have,
they're usually brilliant when they're in kindergarten. And then after that, they'll start to weed themselves out.
Not all kids are brilliant in kindergarten. Anyway, Johnny especially mentioned that he had memories of us going to school. This would have been in North Carolina, to sing in his classroom. And he remembers singing, "Do you know what your name is, what your name is? Do you know what your name is? It is." I'd point to one child and everybody would say their name. And they'd go around the classroom and saying all the names of all the kids. They loved that song. Going on a lion hunt, the Three Bears, which now I have it made up for Miss Music, but the kids always loved those songs. And the kids would get up in the front. Once upon a time in the meadow in the woods there lived 3 bears, and everybody's clapping. One was the papa bear, one was the mama bear, one was the wee bear. So you could have 3 kids up there to be the mama, papa, baby bear, and Goldilocks, one other extra one for Goldilocks. So it was a lot of fun for the kids to get up and take their turn acting out that song. It was great.
Now, Brian, he started kindergarten in Chandler.
In El Paso.
El Paso.
He was just born
That's right.
in Chandler. We moved when he was 2, and then he started school, not at the Eastwood Elementary, because by that time we had moved to the house on Chazelle. And so he started school at the other elementary school, which was kind of outside of our neighborhood a little bit. He went to kindergarten, and I have a vivid memory of him finishing his first semester of first grade, and he still wasn't reading. And I was complaining to the teacher about this. Of course, I was a busy mom. I didn't take the time to teach him at home like some kids I know. Zeke, I'm thinking of Zeke. He's right now 4 years old. He can already read, and he's not even in school yet. But he's had homeschool because of COVID. They've been doing homeschool at their house since March of 2020. And so he always said, okay, it's my turn too. And he had his little Einstein toys to play with to teach him how to read. And he's been reading before he was even 4 years old. But here was Brian. He could read some, but he wasn't reading well. In the first semester of first semester of first grade. So usually by kindergarten they start to read, and by first grade they're getting pretty good at it, but he was not good at it. And the teacher said, well, we have the special classroom he's in. They're doing English and Spanish every day. They have half a day in English and half a day in Spanish. I said, well, he's not getting reading. He needs to have a whole day in English. So we switched him to another classroom where he was having English all day, and he blossomed after that. He was doing much better.
Now, when we had the kids all going to school, we would have grading periods. In Texas, it was every 6 weeks, versus other school districts that used to do every 9 weeks. So we'd have six grading periods in a Texas school district. And so we had different incentives or rewards that the kids could earn by doing well at school. And so one of the main ones I remember for grading period reports were when the kids would be on the honor roll, we'd all go out to dinner as a family, and they'd have dinner with us. And Mom really enjoyed that, not because she just didn't have to cook a dinner that night, but she enjoyed it because she wanted to brag on the kids. So she would take the kids, or she'd have the kids all stand up or as the servers were there. Everybody she met when we went into the restaurant, she'd have to say, we're bringing our family here because they were all on the honor rolls. And even if some of them weren't, sometimes we wouldn't, I don't think we left anybody home.
I have to mention something here. Jacob was not an honor roll student sometimes. He was an underachiever. And I think even in high school, he still was not achieving what he could have. And it was hard for him, birth order, having the big brother who was smart, very smart, having the sister who was smart even though she was deaf, and then he just couldn't, he didn't feel like he could keep up with Nathan sports-wise and what other things, so he just kind of chose to be not exceptional. And I remember the first time he got straight A's, he says, maybe I am smart. This was sometime in high school. And now he's an anesthesiologist, so what do you think about that? You don't have to, whatever you feel like you're doing in school doesn't necessarily mean it's going to affect the whole rest of your life. But building confidence is very important. Let me say something here about rewards. Some of the parenting books and parenting mores of this time say you shouldn't be rewarding your kids, or you shouldn't be giving them rewards for accomplishing things that they should normally do anyway. I think rewards always work. And during the summer, we would have rewards, reading clubs, go to the library and get some books, and according to the different age groups, they had different things that they need to do to earn their rewards. But, being able to choose a movie or choose their own box of cereal or whatever it was an incentive for them to excel. And personally, I think it's very important to let your kids know what you expect of them, and let them know what the standards are. And what if you don't want them to be here on the average, you want them to be above average. So in order to be above average, you have to put in above average work and commitment and study skills.
So we've always thought that rewards were would be very motivating for the kids, that they'd enjoy getting these things. So they were always getting their favorite cereals for just them during those summer months.
Let me mention something about going on to college. So Nathan was our first one. You have 7 kids. You're thinking, okay, he's the first one. We're looking at all these scholarship opportunities. And he probably, I don't remember, he probably could tell you where he got scholarship offers from. But the Air Force Academy was pretty nice because that included room and board. So to sit at the Air Force Academy, he would be able to get everything paid for. But it was hard to get what's the word? He had to get recommended by a congressional
recommendation.
Congressional leader who's elected person in the U.S. House of Representatives had to,
or the Senate.
Yeah, had to give him a recommendation to go to the Air Force Academy. So he got that, and he went to the Air Force Academy. That was a good choice. And Priscilla started at Rick's College, and after some experience watching other kids, our kids' age, go to school, we knew that it was better to get there early. So we sent Priscilla to Rick's College in the summer before school started. So she graduated and then went to...
Within a week or so.
Yeah, off to school to Rexburg, Idaho to start summer school. And it was very good for her. I can't remember exactly when you guys got engaged. Was it
It was May after.
Was it the first year?
May 1990.
Was it after your first year of college then? Okay. So, in her first year of college, that she met Eric at the Deaf Club. Eric had been on a mission to Washington, D.C., where he learned sign language. And so he went to the Deaf Club. By this time, he was already graduated. He was already graduated from Rick's College. It was a 2-year school at the time. So he was working, but still went to the Deaf Club because he knew sign language, and it was cool to be, having some social relationships with the college kids. And that's where they met. And got married and lived in a trailer. But everything is happily ever after. This week they had their 28-year wedding anniversary.
Yep.
let's
Go ahead.
talk about more school.
Yeah, which?
So Priscilla graduated from Ricks College. Jacob went to BYU for 1 year on an ROTC scholarship. And then he was actually Army ROTC. I think he had a math. I can't remember exactly what it was. But he went to Army ROTC, went on his mission. And let me tell you something about Jake's first year at college. He was, we had Nathan who went to school free, basically. We had Priscilla who went to school at Ricks, which was, we paid for housing and gave her money for food and all of that.
And tuition.
And tuition. We paid for all those things. For Jake, when we sent him to school, he went in the summer also. By that time, we were living in St. George. And we put him on the meal program. I think it was $400 a month that we'd pay for maybe $300 or $400. I can't remember. We paid for food for him to be on the meal program. He was living in the dorms, but he didn't. He said, "Mom, you're wasting your money. They have food all around campus." And he didn't like the meal program, so we did that for a while, but didn't keep it up forever. That was before he went on his mission. Then he came home from his mission, and that was in August or September, and he was engaged really right away. And
after his mission.
Back from his mission, and got married, and so we didn't have to pay for him after that. But actually, he went through school without the military.
Right, except for 1 year.
He had the 1 year of the ROTC helping pay for his tuition, went on his mission. After his mission, Molly didn't want the military, so that he graduated from BYU without the military obligations and without that extra money helping to pay for his tuition. But then after that, he went to an Army medical program for his doctor training. Went to, what was it called? Kirksville College
of Osteopathic Medicine.
Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine in which city?
Kirksville,
Missouri.
And we had the opportunity to visit them once or twice there. I think maybe twice, other than just their graduation. So.
Okay. Marie went to school at Dixie College because it was a block away. She went to school, and then I don't think she graduated before she decided to go on a mission. She went on her mission.
One of Marie's big memories was that she remembers that after her graduation, she didn't get to spend grad night there.
Oh, this is high school graduation.
Yeah, in St. George. In other words, with all of her friends to have graduation night. Because the next day, in fact, we may have left that night or the next morning, that we drove down to El Paso because that was going to be Nathan and Melanie's wedding day.
It was the day she graduated. We drove that night to El Paso. So she didn't get to have her graduation party. And the next day was getting ready for the wedding. I don't think it was that actual next day was the wedding. I think we had to get ready for the wedding.
Yeah.
They had a wedding breakfast and all those sorts of things.
Yep.
Luncheon. So anyway, our two girls have college associate's degrees. So Priscilla was 2 years at Ricks College. For Marie, it was 2 years at Dixie College. And Mike went on he had also the ROTC helping him with his first year at BYU, went on his mission, came back. He wasn't married, but he decided he didn't want to do the military thing. So he went through school and earned money as a teacher's assistant through BYU and helping to...
And tutoring.
Tutoring and that sort of thing. I'll tell you a funny story. When Mike was ready to graduate, he was still not dating anyone seriously. I mean, he dated off and on, and he kept meeting these girls that were decided to go on missions. Anyway, it was almost time for graduation for him, and we made the funny comment, there should be a last chance dance at BYU. Last chance dance for everybody who's graduating who's not married yet. So you could meet somebody who you might want to marry. Anyway.
I thought maybe about having a lottery where all the seniors who weren't married got a tuition check refund.
That didn't go very far either.
Well, that was just by me. But
Then
anyway,
Mike went on to his secondary training, so he went to school at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, and that's where he met Rebecca. And so, you know the rest of that story, happily ever after. Johnny went to BYU on an ROTC scholarship, went on a mission to Japan, came home and continued ROTC, and graduated the same day that Jacob was graduating from getting his doctor's degree in Kirksville, Iowa, so we couldn't be both places. Kirksville, Missouri. And so we went to Missouri to Jake's doctor graduation, and Brian and Brandy and other family, Marie, came to Johnny's graduation from BYU to give him the support he needed.
and the commissioning in the Air Force.
Commissioning in the Air Force, that's correct.
And then Johnny drove. He had to go to officer training school after graduation. So he was on his way to Alabama for training for a few weeks. And so he was on the road, came out to Kansas City in Independence, I think actually, met us there, and we were there with
Jacob and Molly.
Jake and Molly were there with us. And so we said hello to Johnny for the afternoon.
Okay. And Brian has a different college experience. He went from home to BYU summer school, met Brandy. I mean, didn't meet her because they were friends from El Paso, so we'd known her forever. Chris Hawker, Brandy's next younger brother, and Brian were really good friends. And so he got together with them again, and the romance flourished. So when Johnny had already returned from his mission at BYU, Johnny was at BYU after his mission. He met Shelby. At the same time, Brian was going to summer school with at BYU, and he reignited his romance with Brandy, and they both got married in November that year.
Yeah.
So it would have been after Johnny had done his mission, and Brian and Brandy got married 3 days later. So it was like the day before Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving, maybe it was 2 days before, but anyway, 3 days apart, they got married the same year. And Mike was the last one to get married. But Brian was then started with a family, really young, as a wife, and he decided to join the Army. So of all of
Air Force.
Join the Air Force. We had Nathan Air Force, Jake Army, Mike started the Air Force ROTC but gave it up, Johnny Air Force, and Brian wanted to join the Air Force. So, you know, when you're young with a wife and trying to earn some money and all those things, so he joined the Air Force. They went to Okinawa, Japan.
That was their first real assignment.
They got
And over there, they had Heath and Hayden. Twins, the very first birth. And those were kind of our miracle grandkids, weighing at 2 pounds 7 ounces and 2 pounds 11 ounces.
They were born in Japan, and they had to go on the special transport to Hawaii for the NICU, Neonatal Intensive Care Unit in Hawaii. And anyway, so he was busy raising kids and doing family things and working for his job was with the Air Force. And when they got stationed because of having the babies and all the problems, the Air Force is really, really good about family, understanding family needs. And so they sent him to be assigned to bring the babies home to Clearfield, Utah. And he was at the Air Force there. What's it called?
Hill Air Force Base.
Hill Air Force Base. So he was there going to work and decided to go to school at Weber State University. So during his time in the Air Force, he had graduated with a couple of different degrees through the Air Force, a couple of associate's degrees through the Air Force, and then he got his associate's degree from Weber State by, putting in the hard time and doing the extra hours after work to be able to get that degree, 2-year degree. And then when they moved to Cedar Hills, he decided to go finish up his bachelor's degree at Utah State University.
Utah Valley.
Okay, Utah Valley. That's right. Utah Valley. It was called Utah Valley University. It was called Utah State, wasn't it? Utah State's in Logan. Okay. So we started going there. I'm sure he might have had some online classes, but he graduated in May 2019. Graduated with his bachelor's degree. Took a long time. He kept working at it. Finally got his bachelor's degree, which has made a big difference in his ability to earn an income.
So,
I don't have my phone here. What time is it?
We're at about 40 minutes.
Okay, that's a lot of time talking about education. And just so you know, it's still important. I always wanted to go back to school. I planned to go back to school, but I never did. And I think it's very important for you to get as much education as you can.
yeah, so far from our kids, Nathan's got a master's degree.
He got a master's degree in Spain, plus a master's degree in the U.S.
Plus he got, Priscilla got an associate's degree. Jacob got a doctorate degree. Marie got an associate's degree. Mike got a PhD. We got Johnny now with his PhD, having graduated from the University of Michigan. And then we have Brian with his bachelor's degree.
And any piece of paper that says you graduate from college is important, no matter how high the recognition is. There's a lot of things you can do without having to have an advanced degree. Experience and other things play into it. But go to college. We tell all of our kids and grandkids, go to college, get your education, earn a living. For the rest of your life, it'll pay off.
Professionally, I call that degree a ticket and license. And with that, you can pursue your dreams.
All right, take us out with a song.
What song do we have for singing? Oh, I know what. I want, at the end of this, I want Eric to add the song that we had Caleb and Kim and Caitlin singing last night, to have it at the end of this so we can hear them. Just so you know, they learn their singing by going to school. Being in the choir at school starts their interest in singing, which you could enjoy for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Over and out. Love you.
Love you guys, and we're the Happy Wanderers.
Something always brings me back to you. It never takes too long. No matter what I say or do, I'll still feel you here till the moment I'm gone. You hold me without touch. You keep me without change.